Chat, I have been talking about recently the tankification of Owen Jones. Now, what do I mean by that? I mean that Owen Jones has unfortunately been a liberal imperial core mouthpiece for propaganda for some time. He has overly criticized Jeremy Corbyn and the left-wing socialist Labour Party efforts that he made. And he has also said absurd and insane things about Gaza and Palestine in the past. But he has, in fact, changed his tune rather significantly over the last couple of years. And of course, it's since October the 7th. The other day, yesterday, in fact, I saw Owen Jones countering disinformation about Russia. What do I mean by that? I don't mean that Owen Jones is sat there going, Russia is so good, it's the best country to live in, absolutely, and there's definitely no war in Ukraine and it's all made up and stuff like that. But of course, there is a narrative that Russia is like murdering loads of Ukrainian civilians and that like it's the same as a genocide and all this kind of stuff. And, Russia just like attacked Ukraine out of nowhere and it was nothing to do with NATO aggression or anything like that. And I don't expect journalists like Owen Jones to sit there and go, yeah, NATO was really bad. And the reason that Russia invaded Ukraine is because NATO was poking them constantly, organizing fucking fascist counter-revolutions in countries on their border, etc., etc., etc. He's never going to do that. But what I did see was this, which was very interesting. In 12 years, the Russian army has managed to hold 10% of Ukraine by pre-war population. That's its neighboring country. Anyone who thinks the Russians are going to invade the UK is a crank. Now, why is this interesting? Because at the moment, this freak has been joining the chorus of saber-rattling towards Russia from the UK in recent months. Let's hear what the fuck he's saying.
Things like welfare, to be quite honest, they are unimportant when you lose a war and you have Russian, Chechen stormtroopers coming down the street, raping women and killing people.
Yes, that'll definitely happen, won't it? That's definitely going to happen. Now, of course, this is utter nonsense. And what this guy is saying is that people who are on benefits, who are already suffering and dying, should actually suffer and die more because maybe there would be an invasion of the UK, which is not going to happen. So Owen Jones is saying that regarding Ukraine, and it is completely true. In 12 years, the Russian army has managed to hold 10% of Ukraine by pre-war population. That's its neighboring country. Anyone who thinks the Russians are going to invade the UK is a crank. Now, while this may not have the nuance and the detail that maybe I would like to see in reporting in the UK, it's quite good. And it is more and more evidence of what I am calling the tankification of Owen Jones, right? He is going to be a tanky by next year, chat. I'm telling you right now. He's going to be a solid campist. And what else is he doing? I wanted to have a look at this. This is a 29-minute interview between him and this person that I don't know who it is. But he's talking about this new law, talking about how there is going to be more and more restrictions on free speech in the UK.
This is a massive threat to democracy, and it's getting virtually no debate, discussion, scrutiny at all. Disturbing, but I'm afraid sums up where we're at, not least with the British and Western media. There's something called the National Security State Threats Bill, which is going through Parliament, and it's a huge menace, and it has all sorts of really disturbing implications. You deserve to know about that. What the hell is this bill? What is it? What are we talking about?
Sure. So this bill's been introduced very, very, very rapidly. So it was introduced into Parliament in June by Shabbat Mahmood, who's the Home Secretary, and updates existing national security legislation. So there's like this overarching national security legislation, and it amends it and updates it. So the first part of the bill is to basically create these powers of prescription that are similar to terrorist prescription powers. So as we've seen with Palestine Action being prescribed as a terrorist group, this is similar sort of powers. Now, what it does is it gives the Home Secretary the power to designate what they call a foreign state threat actor or a foreign power actor under this law, effectively designating them as a terrorist group. Now, that is a process that has little to no parliamentary oversight. So unlike, for example, the prescription of Palestine Action, which had to go before Parliament and MPs had to vote on it, under this law, the Home Secretary has effectively unilateral power to designate a foreign threat actor as a foreign threat actor.
Oh, great. Oh, that's so good. So if my stream grows...
And there's some limited parliamentary scrutiny in sort of in intelligence committee oversight committees, but it's extremely limited, and it's been designed for that scrutiny to only happen after the fact. But they can decide to say Hamas, which is already prescribed as a terrorist organization, is also prescribed under this law. Now, the second part of the bill then criminalizes the act of collaborating with or working with a designated group. And it's defined extremely broadly in the legislation. What it means practically is that anybody who works with a designated group who receives a benefit from it, including, so that's money and any sort of goods, but also information, exchanges or shares information with that designated group, is guilty of an offense.
Oh, great. Oh, that's so good. So if my stream grows and I am commenting on the Iran war in what I believe to be a correct and accurate manner, which I often do, then I could possibly be designated a terrorist or a foreign state actor. This is terrifying. We won't even be able to refer to Hamas Health Ministry figures, correct? Also, since Reform and Restore take Russian money, they will also be terrorists. Yeah, but they won't do that to Reform and Restore. You can bet your bottom dollar they're not going to do that. They're just going to do it to pro-Palestinian or people like me who accurately report on the goings-on of geopolitics. It's just censorship. Yeah, it's literally George Orwell 1987 Animal Crossing. Yeah.
Anybody who hosts a meeting or attends a meeting or arranges a meeting in which somebody will make statements in support of that prescribed group or will do something to advance the causes of that prescribed group, it's very vague, would also be guilty of offense.
Yeah, I think the thing that he is saying so far is a bunch of this stuff is already true, right? So I can't express support for Hamas because they're a prescribed group in the same way that I can't express support for the Provisional IRA. I can't express support for Hezbollah or Palestine Action, right? That would be a terrorist offense in this country. I can disagree with the prescription of those groups, and I think that they're wrong. I'm allowed to do that. That's my legal right in this country, as far as I understand it. So a lot of this stuff is stuff that is already there, but particularly the information stuff is the bit that is fucked up because, yes, what someone was saying in the chat before, we won't be able to, refer to Hamas Health Ministry figures. And any organization that refers to Hamas Health Ministry figures, like an NGO or the Lancet, or anything like that, any kind of scientific, credible outlet that wants to report on things accurately, where they will have to engage with either Hamas or Iranian groups or Iranian organizations, if those Iranian organizations are deemed as terrorists or whatever, or anything like that, then in fact, yes, that is going to mean that they are prescribed as terrorists as well, or foreign state actors. Here's the thing. It's going to be insanely difficult for them to police this, and it's stupid, but that's why it's so vaguely worded, and I think that is the vaguely worded, that's the reason that it is vaguely worded. It's because it's supposed to be a catch-all. And Eric, hello, yes, I think that you are right. The indecently rushed through Keith's last gift as PM to the Zionists. I do think it's that. So, I think that is particularly, it's particularly egregious that that's clearly what it is. There is going to be a chilling effect, right? As soon as this goes through, people are not going to know, what the specifics of the law are. We're going to have to ask questions in the select committees. We're going to have to ask our MPs for more definition. It's kind of like in a similar vein to the ECHR, right? The ECHR stuff about trans people. You can't be in a single sex space. Okay, well, what is a single sex space? What do you mean by that? Etc. etc. The reason for that is to, be as vague as possible, to have a chilling effect, right? He said he was going to prescribe the IRGC. I guess this is part of that. Yeah, I mean, the stupid thing is, right, if he prescribes the IRGC, it's like, okay, the IRGC are a terrorist group. Okay, I don't support them. But I will still report on them accurately. But here's the thing, they will often say the IRGC linked media and stuff, right? So it's like, what are you saying? You're saying that this whole time, when they've been reporting information about Tasnim News and IRIB and Fast News Agency and all this, that they've all been breaking the law. They've all been doing terrorism that whole time. right? And of course, it's absurd to call these news outlets IRGC linked, because IRGC linked just means there was a guy that was in the IRGC that was part of it, right? In a country that has had to be extremely militarized ever since its inception, the Islamic Republic of Iran in 1979, they've had to be militarized because of threats from the West, because of threats from the region, and so lots of people have been in the army, and now they're out there and saying like, oh, okay, anyone that's been in the army, that means they're a representative of the IRGC. It's fucking stupid. It would be like saying Pentagon linked CNN is a more accurate example, right? So, like, what are we fucking doing?
The way in which the legislation is worded is it says you can't really say I didn't know as a defense, because it's the legislation is worded to say that that on an objective test, if you work with this group, you should have known that they were prescribed. You can't say I didn't know about this law, I didn't know you prescribed their body. That's not a defense.
Right, but it is a defense, right? It is a fucking defense, especially if this law gets passed and you don't know about it and there's been nothing in the media about it, and you go, I didn't know this was illegal, right? It's just fucking crazy. There's never any fucking fanfare about this stuff, and they expect people to like know the law and shit. And we're having to learn about this from, some independent journalists that are very good, but this is something that should be being reported on by the mainstream media, Yeah, they'll deny plausible deniability straight away. Fill up the private prison factories with someone, yes. Strange how Hamas and Hezbollah prescribe, but there's no record of them having carried out any terrorist attacks in the UK, unlike Mossad, who set off a car bomb outside the Israeli embassy. Yeah, correct. This is why I disagree with the prescription of them as terrorists, because they have not done any terrorism in the UK. It's just not real. Same with Palestine Action. Like, that's why I disagree with the prescription of Palestine Action, because they haven't done any terrorism in the UK. And I know that the High Court wants to say that they have, but they haven't. Like, that's just the end of it, right? I think the thing is that what we have to remember, chat, is that this is why things are getting so bad in the UK, is because the empire is falling apart and it is about to be completely unrecognizable. I don't know what they're thinking. I don't know what these big imperialist bosses think they're fucking doing when it comes to saber rattling over Russia and saying that the UK should just be like attacking Russia and ready for war with Russia and all this kind of stuff, because they will get fucking battered, right? We will get battered. The whole of Europe would get battered by Russia. That's just the facts, right? I don't know why they think that that's such a good idea when America is definitely not going to help, because we aren't really helping them as much as they would like us to in Iran. And even if we did, we would still get battered with them in Iran. So, the empire is falling apart. There is this fracture between the US and the rest of NATO. It isn't quite fractured yet, but it's fracturing. It's becoming smaller. It's becoming weaker. But the reason for this happening is certainly because I think the people in power, including Starmer, Burnham, all these people, even the transitionary, people who are helping out with all this stuff, I think they understand that the balance of power is now shifting away from the West, right? And I think that is why a lot of nations are Turkifying, as I have called it, right? Which means becoming more and more fascist and dictatorial, increasing military spending, wanting to increase the size of the military. Now, sadly for the UK and the ruling class in the UK, this is going to be very difficult, because people in the motherfucker just said PP. People in the UK don't want to join the army. They don't want to go to war. They don't want any of that stuff. The UK has engaged in the military-industrial complex, which drives up the price of arms and guns, weapons, ammunition, all this kind of stuff. So it's going to be very fucking difficult for us to afford anything of any meaningful kind of defense, because we don't have state production of military hardware or anything like that. So participating in capitalism has made us shoot ourselves in the foot once again. I don't want to say ourselves, because I'm not fucking part of that, but the UK. Because the empire is getting scared. It doesn't know what's going on. It knows that it doesn't have the power that it used to. And so it's turning that exerted power from the outside into itself. Yeah? It's the imperial boomerang. That's what it is, chat. The easiest way to understand it is by explaining it in the way that I have done. Yeah?